Now, that intro was fun and all, but I had to put me on some regular clothes, honey. I was feeling naked. Anyway, this is Ashley with Ashley Says So. I am back with another Old Hollywood Scandals video. This video is going to be about the beautiful but very, very scandal-filled life of Miss Jayne Mansfield. Oh, and please stay to the end of the video so we can vote on a new name for y'all, because I want to call y'all something because y'all are mine. You know, most times subscribers obsess over the YouTubers, but here at Ashley's channel, the YouTuber obsesses over y'all. Vera Jayne Mansfield was born on April 19th, 1933 in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. And here's a nice little piece of information. Her mother Vera lived from 1903 all the way to the year 2000. She almost made it to 100 years old. The ironic part about that is her father passed away very early. He died of a heart attack when he was 32 years old in the year of 1936. Now, after her father died, Vera Jayne's mother remarried a man named Harry Lawrence Pierce. And he moved the family to Dallas, Texas. And when they got to Dallas, Vera Jayne, well, I'm just going to start calling her Jayne because I don't want y'all or me to get confused. So when they got to Dallas, Jayne really blossomed. She made straight A's and sometimes B's in school. She learned how to play the violin. She did ballroom dancing, and she really blossomed into a beautiful teen. And honey, you already know when you're a beautiful teen girl, all those handsome teen guys come knocking at your door. But Jayne chose a guy named Paul Mansfield over the rest. She met Paul at a Christmas Eve party in 1949, and they quickly became Lover's Lane teens. Y'all know the teens I'm talking about, the kind that get it in the backseat of a car? Yes, that was Jayne and Paul. So when they got married on May 6, 1950, Jayne was already 3 months pregnant. So on November the 8th, 1950, Jayne gave birth to the child, and it was a girl that they named Jayne Marie Mansfield. And child, as soon as she let that baby out, Paul was just sitting up there looking crazy because Jayne started begging him to move her to California. Paul is like, well, Jayne, don't you want to stay at home and be a mother to our child? I would rather you stay. And Jayne is like, I don't care what you rather. I want to go and be a big time movie star. So either we moving to California or I'm moving to California. So Paul ended up giving in, and the whole family moved to California. And when they got to California, I don't know if the acting bug bit Paul as well or something, because he and Jayne enrolled in a college and took acting classes. But girl, wasn't nobody checking for Paul. Ain't nobody asked him to be in no pictures. Ain't nobody asked him to be in no commercials. Child, they ain't even want him walking down the catwalk, child. Ain't nobody wanted Paul. Now, who they were checking for was his wife, Miss Jayne Mansfield. Jayne had already been competing in beauty pageants back home in Texas, and she won every single one of them that she entered. But they were just little small beauty pageants like Miss Photo Flash, Miss Magnesium Lamp, and Miss Fire Prevention Week. Now that she was in California, Jayne set straight to work. She started networking. She started building relationships with people. So before you know it, she was being asked to be in more prestigious beauty pageants. She was even asked to be in the Miss California pageant, and she signed up and she won the local round. But the problem was, in order to compete in the Miss California pageant, you could not be married. So when she went to Paul and was like, hey, can we please act like our marriage is a secret? Can we keep it on the hush hush? And Paul was like, no ma'am, you're my wife. As a matter of fact, if you don't withdraw from that pageant, I'm gonna come up there and tell them that you're my wife and yank you out of there myself. So she had to withdraw from the pageant. Now, I'm not saying that Paul was right or wrong doing this, but I am saying that when he did this, Jayne's patience wore very thin because he had already been on her about not pursuing her career, and now he wasn't letting her do big time pageants. And Jayne she just was growing tired of him. She had already started messing around on him. They were fighting a lot. It just was not working out. So she soon fell for a divorce. And when they divorced, Jayne Marie stayed in California with Jayne, and Paul went back to Texas. Now that Jayne is a completely free woman, honey, she starts doing whatever she wants to do. She starts going for all kind of auditions. She starts looking for talent agents. She even auditioned for the role of Joan of Arc. But honey, let me tell you how the audition went. So Jayne is in there, she's reading and auditioning, and she's telling the guys, you know, I have a 160 IQ, which is true. I know how to play the violin. I'm an expert, which is also true. But the whole time she's talking, the people in the studio, mostly men, are just looking at her like, And so when she's done, one of the guys are like, why are you here auditioning for Joan of Arc? And Jayne is like, because I want the part. And he was like, look, honey, let me tell you something. Men do not care about no high IQ of 160. They don't care that you know how to play the violin. Men care about that body. So what I want you to do is go home and fix yourself up and be what men desire. Then he told her, when you're done with all that, come back to me and audition for the role of the 7-Year Itch. And for those of you who don't know about the movie The 7-Year Itch, it's like a dumb blonde type movie, you know. So it was made very clear to Jayne that with that figure, you need to just be worried about keeping men attracted to you. And also, this was the worst advice that anybody could have given Jayne, because she took this as, I always need to keep men hot. I always need to keep them wanting me in order to be successful and to be famous. So she goes home, she dyes her brunette hair blonde, she loses about 20 pounds, she starts wearing these form-fitting clothes to accentuate her curves. But when she goes back to audition for the 7-Year Itch, of course she does not get it. Marilyn Monroe gets it. But the men that are on set are all like, who is this fine mama that's done walked through? They just, ooga. Y'all know them little old cartoons where the fine woman walked through and they eyes popping up out of their heads and stuff. That is what was happening to them men, honey. And I know this is real life. That really happened. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that Jayne has officially made her statement, and now there are eyes on her. Her good looks even helped her book a new talent agent. But everything she tries to do, more famous blondes, namely Marilyn Monroe, keeps taking the position before she can get it. So Jayne is like, I have to do something drastic. Let me tell you what she did with this glow up. Jane Russell had starred in a film that was about to be released called Underwater. And they were doing a photo shoot for that film, marketing, promotional type thing. So they got a lot of models to come through there. And one of the models, of course, was Jayne Mansfield. So Jayne puts on a teeny tiny red bikini. And all she's supposed to do is stand with the other models on side of the pool. So they're all going down the line, taking pictures of the models. And before they get to Jayne, she, falls into the pool. And of course, when she falls in, all of the men rushes to help her. So when she resurfaces, this is Jayne. Oh no! It seems like I lost my top. The current is so strong. And baby, those pictures started clicking. You hear me? It was just like click, 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 click. And I can only imagine that Jane Russell was like, I know she did. Who she thinks she is sitting up here trying to take the attention off of me? But child, wasn't no eyes on Jane Russell. They could care less about what she was doing. Here's a woman right here with her top off. We're going to focus on her. And next thing you know, the very next day, Jayne Mansfield's buzz was so loud that she was being pursued by bigger talent agents, prominent magazines, and you know who was sitting in the corner like, Child, the owner of the most prominent magazine of all at that time, Hugh Hefner, Playboy. And what I already told y'all about Jayne, she got it in her mind that she has to please the men. So that is the spread that she said yes to. And she ended up being Playboy of the Month in February of 1955. Soon after that, she got the biggest news of her life. She was being cast as Rita Marlowe in the new big, huge play, Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter? And baby, when I tell you Jayne got up on that stage and showed out, honey, she showed all her tail, did an excellent job. It was so successful that play was turned into a film and Jayne was asked to come back in her starring role. And now I want to put a little tea in here because Jayne had been sleeping with producers and directors. That is the rumor that is going around. And I truly believe this rumor because that is what most of the actresses of that day had to do to get put on screen. But those big time directors and producers were very, very married men. And there was no way that they were going to leave their blue-blooded wives to get with a little skank actress like Jayne Mansfield. And I hate that. I hope that didn't offend nobody. But I'm just saying it like it was. They looked at those little actresses like skank actresses. And Jayne didn't really mind this, but like now she's a star of a big play. She's invited to all type of shows, clubs, bars, and she's going to every one of them. But she does not have a man on her arm. Well, honey, she fixed that because one night she went to a show that Mae West was giving. And baby, Mae West came on stage. how do you do? Is that a gun in your pocket? Or you just happy to see me? You know, Mae West come out with all her stuff, honey. She come out with about 12 men on the stage, 6 men on this side, 6 men on that side. And Jayne is just enjoying the show, sipping her little cup, looking cute. You know, she looking around. And honey, she looked up at the stage. And baby, her eyes got big, honey, because she saw a godchild. And his name was Mickey Hargitay. So Jayne is in shock, seeing this big, fine specimen of a man, and she's cutting her eyes at him and winking and blowing them kisses. And Mickey is like, for me? And she is like, yes, baby, for you. And he liked what he was having. And so he and Jayne started dating. And Jayne ended up falling in love with him. But let's be real, Jayne didn't really necessarily get with him for love at first. She got with him because he made her image look good. Mickey Hargitay was a big, strong bodybuilder. As a matter of fact, he won the title of Mr. Universe in 1955. So she looked at him like she could be the damsel in distress, you know, the little goddess. And he was like her big god, her big superhero. And they looked good together and the public ate it up. I mean, the people loved them. They did not look at them like a power couple per se, but they looked at them like a beauty queen and king couple. Like, you know, they were the Ken and Barbie of their day. But shy, if you think Mae West took this land down, you're wrong about it. Because Mae West acted a fool, honey. She came for Jayne Mansfield and was like, really? You think you're gonna take one of my men? Sis, this ain't over. And Jayne was like, yes, I took one of your men. You don't need to have them anyway. You got about 11 more men. And Mae was like, I don't give a doggone how many men I got. That one was one of mine. He was there for me. That is my boy toy. And Jayne was like, well, you better boy toy somewhere else because Mickey is mine. And so when it came to Mickey, Mickey is like, I'm sorry, Mae. You know, I fell in love with Jayne. I'm sorry. And Mae was like, you know what? You can keep her. Y'all can have each other. And then she went and did all type of interviews and was like, you know, I told him he could keep her because if he wanted the carbon copy of the real thing, then baby, he can have it. Woo, child. Mae was a mess, baby. So now Jayne and Mickey are dating. Like I said, they're both very much in love with each other. Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter did turn into a very successful movie and things are going good for her. So Mickey asked her to marry him. And honey, their wedding was a scandalous thing, child. I mean, Jayne showed up in a doggone dress that was skin tight, see-through, had sequins everywhere. It was pink. Attention seeking. She even was calling photographers and paparazzi, you know, to come to the wedding and take pictures. And I'm not saying this is unusual, but Jayne was getting like to where, you know, even a man that don't even know them walking across the street, if he had a camera, she wanted him to come take pictures too. She was doing all of this stuff for publicity. Also, let me throw this little bit of tea in there. While they were dating, Jayne was still very much cheating on Mickey. She still was sleeping with those different producers, different directors trying to get roles. And she did get roles in a few movies. And Mickey, I'm not going to say he was okay with this, but he kind of turned a blind eye because he felt like that, okay, I understand that that's what women have to do, and I get that you're chasing your dream. But he did expect her to stop this behavior once they became married. So they get married and they move into this pink house, like a pink palace. I actually think that was the name of the house. A huge mansion, honey. And it was totally pink. The outside was pink, the inside, the ceilings, the walls, the carpet, the furniture, just everything pink, child. Just looked a mess to me. That's just my opinion. I didn't like it, but then again, it's not my house. And it also looks like Mickey did not have any say in decorating the house, but child, I don't think he was worried about that. He was just ready to get in the house and do his thing in the bedroom. And that's what he did because soon after they were married, they had 2 sons. There was Mickey Jr. and she gave birth to a son named Zoltan. Jayne settled into the home life. She was being a wife and a mother, and this would have been fine if her career would have stayed on a steady, successful pace, but it did not. Her career slowed down. And Jayne did not take this well at all. She started pretty much like a vendetta against Marilyn Monroe. She blamed Marilyn Monroe for everything when it came to her career. And so she started doing little petty stuff, like at award shows. She would show up and, you know, walk her little way over to beside Marilyn Monroe and kind of pose for pictures. She wanted the cameras to capture them together so the public can be like, oh, you know, Jayne, she looked kind of better than Marilyn, or, you know, she has bigger boobs or stuff like that. Like she had a competition going on in her head. And I hate to say this, but it was not reciprocated. Marilyn Monroe wasn't worried about no dang on Jayne Mansfield. You know, she just did not have that competition going on. And what's even more sad is when these attempts of the photo ops with Marilyn Monroe didn't help bring Jayne any more film roles or even more serious inquiries, she started doing things that was even more, it just kind of started turning into shenanigans, just crazy stuff. Like the time when she showed up at Sophia Loren's dinner. This dinner was dedicated to Sophia Loren because she was a big star in her own right. And Jayne shows up and just kind of sits at the table with Sophia and got a real low-cut dress on, y'all. And her nipple is hanging over the dress. And she's just sitting there acting like she's just talking with her nipple hanging out. And Sophia Loren is like, ugh. Who is this tramp? Like, ugh. You can tell she was thinking that because of the face she made. For some odd reason, Jayne thought that this type of behavior would help her career, but she was only hurting herself. And then it got like super pathetic. It just kind of turned into ridiculousness. Just to name a few ridiculous things that she did, like one time she showed up at some type of important event and she had her dress made where the straps was made to pop. And so when she gets there, in the middle of the event, her dress falls down, the top of her dress. Her boobs are completely exposed. And then later on that evening at the same event, her dress drops down again. And she's still getting publicity. Of course, all the cameras are on her, but it's just getting kind of ridiculous. And then she gets even more pathetic. And that is when she tries to recreate that same initial buzz she had by falling in the pool at the Jane Russell shoot. She calls the photographers over to her house. Basically, ooh, boys, I wanted to call you over to watch me swim, and then goes in the water again. And then this time she comes up, she don't have on no top or bottoms. Just craziness, ridiculousness that people know is like, okay, you're a clown for doing this. But she didn't think herself a clown. She felt like she was doing what she needed to do to keep her male audience. But majority of her male audience now thought this behavior was sad. She's a married mother now, and I'm not in no way saying that married women with children are not attractive and sexy. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that Jayne was trying to recapture this sex pot sexiness instead of doing the mature thing. Like, be a mature siren. They do wear kind of form-fitting stuff, but they are still very sexy, very classy, like me. After the pool stunt, even her wardrobe designer dropped her. He thought she was tasteless. And this is just not any old wardrobe designer. This is Richard Blackwell. He was like a designer to the stars, big time stars. He said Jayne confuses publicity and notoriety with stardom and celebrity. And the end result is very distasteful to the public. She had messed up her reputation so badly that when she and husband Mickey Hargitay went out on a boating trip or something like that, they actually became shipwrecked. And they were out there, I guess, on the water for 2-3 days, something like that. I don't know, before they were found. And, they were really sunburned and bad looking when they were found, but the public did not believe it. They felt like this was just another publicity stunt. I don't know. But soon she got a call that made her very happy. And that is when her agent told her that she was going to snag the role for the new Harlow movie. She was going to play Jean Harlow. But he told her there was one single catch. All she had to do to snag this role was sleep with one of the studio heads. And of course, Jayne is like, okay. I don't know if any of you watch SNL and see Chad, but okay. That's basically what Jayne was like. Like, it wasn't no problem to her. Baby, you know how many men she had slept with to get these roles? She was cool with it. But Mickey, her husband, found out about it. And he pleaded and begged with Jayne, Jayne, don't do this. Like, this was cool before you were a married woman. You are my wife now. It's not even that big of a deal, baby. We got enough money that we're good, at least for a little while, even if we have to get regular jobs. But Jayne was like, a regular job? Me? I'm a superstar. What are you talking about? And he couldn't stop her. And she ended up sleeping with that guy. And after she goes through with it, she's happy. Mickey hadn't said anything else about it. Everything is good. She's just waiting for somebody to give her the call for the dress rehearsal and things like that. Time passed and time passed. And she never received a call. And all of a sudden, she gets notice that the film is about to shoot. So she's calling the studios, showing up there like, how is the film about to shoot? Nobody even told me about dress rehearsals. I don't know about costumes. Nobody has told me the film schedule. what are we gonna do? And that is when she received the heartbreaking news that Carol Baker had actually been cast for the role of Jean Harlow. After this, Jayne grew very depressed, and like they always do, she took it out on the person that loved her most. She took it out on Mickey. And he didn't say any type of "I told you so." He didn't do any of that. He basically was trying to be there for her because he knew how much she was hurt. And she still took it out on him. Baby, Jayne got out here and started sleeping with everybody. Let me name the ones we know of. Brazilian billionaire Jorge Ginley, Las Vegas entertainer Nelson Sardelli, Claude Terrell, the owner of a restaurant in Paris, producer Enrico Bamba, Robert F. Kennedy, and John F. Kennedy. Pause. Baby, I'm sorry, but I had to stop and say something right here, honey, because this is crazy. So you know how I usually name the lovers of people and I put up the pictures, but it's only the lovers? The person in question is never in the picture with them. Child, why come Jayne is just about in every single picture with her lover? Like, it's proof that she did it. Baby, she knows she wrong. And she actually started her affair with John F. Kennedy after Peter Lawford, John's brother-in-law, introduced the two. And this happened in 1960. So she slept with him before Marilyn Monroe slept with him. So I guess she beat Marilyn at something. She was putting herself out there so much, trying to be young, trying to get attention, that she even pursued John Lennon. I don't really like this tale because if it's true, John Lennon really should have some explaining to do. It goes like this. The Beatles, who had made it big by this time, they came over to the U.S. So Jayne found out where John was staying. She shows up at his door dressed in one of her beautiful dresses. You know, she's looking good. She's got it skin tight. And he opens the door. He did not invite her, so she's uninvited, okay? She pushes her way in, and she starts to, rub on his arm. She's trying to seduce him. She wants him to make love to her. So I guess she thought this was going to be cute or something. She starts pulling at his hair like, "Oh, is that real? How do you get your hair cut like a bowl?" or whatever. Just acting ditzy. I guess she thought this little dumb blonde mess was cute for everybody. Some men didn't like it. John was one of them. So he was already annoyed that she showed up uninvited. And then he got really annoyed when she touched his hair and she didn't ask. So he's like, "Okay, do you want some wine?" And Jayne, thinking everything is going good, is like, "Yes, please." Baby, why come that man took that wine glass to the kitchen and peed in it and brought it back to her and let her drink it, honey? Said when she found out and was like, "What's this?" He told her it was his pee, and she started trying to hit him. Baby, he didn't have to do that. Like, if you didn't want her there or if she got on your nerves, you could have just told her that. It is very disrespectful that you would give that woman some doggone pee. I tell you one thing, though, had it been me, y'all would have been picking him up off that floor over there because that's too much. Now, Mickey is still hanging on to the woman he loves, and Jayne has been like just smashing him, humiliating him. And then she took a dagger and she stabbed it straight in his heart. And that is when she asked for a divorce in the year of 1963. Mickey tried to fight for his marriage. He tried to beg for her to please don't do him like this, but she just wasn't having any of it. And she was so nasty that she brought her lover, Nelson Sardelli, to the divorce proceedings, which happened in Juarez, Mexico. And then during the divorce, when Jayne's negative behavior started getting put on the stand, pretty much, it was talking about how much she was a cheater, how she was a drunk, and all of this stuff. Jayne completely annihilated Mickey. And that is when she told the judge that Mickey had kidnapped their children and had tried to keep them from her, like he was a mean, abusive man. Knowing that man ain't never done nothing like that. Knowing all he ever did was love her. Broke his heart. But guess what? It did not matter because Mickey ended up getting custody of his children, even though he could still let Jayne see them as he saw fit. Now, I feel like y'all get the picture already, but in case y'all didn't, let me tell you just how much this man obsessed and loved Jayne Mansfield. Even after she has annihilated him, stabbed him in the heart, after the divorce is complete now, Jayne finds out that she's pregnant, okay? And she calls Mickey, "Mickey, I'm pregnant. And it's your child. And I'm just asking, how would it look for me to be an unwed mother? That would completely destroy my career. So, Mickey, I know that I've done you dirty, but can you please pretend that we're still married in the United States so I can have this baby and I won't look like a total..." And here go Mickey. "Yeah, I will, Jayne. Whatever you want, Jayne. I'm not going to let them look at you like that, of course. I'll still pretend that we're married." A man in love. That's all I got to say, honey, because once again, couldn't be me, baby. And so they did pretend to be married in the U.S., and Jayne ended up giving birth to their daughter, Mariska Hargitay. And yes, I'm sure she looks familiar to you guys because she does play on Law & Order SVU. Now, let me sprinkle a little bit of, well, I mean, this whole thing is tea and scandal, really, but just a little bit of info. Now, somebody said that after Mariska was born, not right after her birth or anything, but just in the years after Mariska was born, that Jayne slept with Sammy Davis Jr. So Jayne now has 4 children. There's Jayne Marie, her first child, Mickey Jr., Zoltan, and now Mariska. Jayne Marie is the only child that's with Jayne Mansfield. And she said at this time that her mother was a good mother to her, but her mother was really focused on trying to get her career. Like, that is the main thing that mattered to her. Yeah, but the battle that Jayne Mansfield was trying to fight was a losing battle. There was no way she was going to win. Now, she was perfect for the 50s. That curvy boobs and her hips and stuff, that was good for the 50s. People liked that for the 50s. The 60s was something totally different. That was not in anymore. That was obsolete. Now there was the really skinny stick figures. You know, the girls with the long legs that you can climb up. Those are the girls that were in. And let me tell you who was doing it for the culture, honey. And no, she ain't got nothing to do with this story, but I'm just trying to give you a description of what was in and who was doing it perfectly. Her name is Miss Diana Ross. Baby, she was killing it in the 60s. Do you hear me? The hair, the fashion, the body style and shape. Miss Ross had it going on. So since America was not really fooling with Jayne Mansfield like that, she started to think, what about overseas? And soon she met an Italian film director named Matt Cimber. And he came in telling her all kind of stuff about how he could revive her career, took her overseas, child, and had her starring in a movie called Promises, Promises, and totally messed up this woman's career. He had this woman in this movie fully nude. It was a very pathetic attempt to try to get her stardom back. And when it didn't work, Matt Cimber started looking at her like, ugh, like you ain't nothing, are you? I thought men were attracted to you. Obviously not. So he started calling her fat, started telling her that she did not look good anymore. Talking about that woman like a dog, but the problem is that you saying all that, but she wasn't so fat and ugly where you didn't sit up there and put a child inside of her, and she gave birth to his son, Tony Cimber. After a while, Jayne woke up and realized that she didn't have to deal with this crap that Matt Cimber was putting her through. She was Jayne Mansfield. So she divorced his sorry butt. And her lawyer, Sam Brody, is like, of course you don't have to put up with that. You're Jayne Mansfield. You are beautiful. If I had you, I wouldn't treat you like that. And all of this stuff is, of course, music to Jayne's ears. As soon as her divorce is final, even before her divorce is final, she's in the bed with her lawyer, Sam Brody. After jumping in the bed with him, she marries him. And honey, as soon as she marries him, the true Sam Brody comes out. He wants to quit being a lawyer. He wants to be her manager, make money off of her, you know, basically parade her around like a show pony. He has Jayne doing anything for publicity. I mean, child, he even got this woman going to Anton LaVey, the Church of Satan. She up there drinking out of Satan's cup, and Anton LaVey is her friend, and she's the newest member. I mean, just completely crazy stuff. I know supposedly all publicity is supposed to be good publicity, even the bad stuff, but come on, sis, you got to do better than this. Now, you're in 1960s America. Almost everybody at that time are Christians, and you think it's a good idea to come out talking about you worshiping the devil with Anton LaVey? Sis, you done too much. Child, if she thought she wasn't getting no film roles before, baby, the whole well dried up this time, baby. It wasn't nothing going for her. And Sam, instead of being like, okay, you know, maybe you should just retire from acting, he's like, no, we can still make money. I'm going to get you to go on a tour. Pretty much had her doing like a low budget review, almost like a striptease. Now, she did not show any real private areas. I don't think she did. I didn't see that she showed any real private areas, but she still was doing a crawling on the table, talking, wearing very revealing outfits. You know, she did not have the same shape that she used to have, so she was a little bit overweight. It just looked like a hot, trashy mess. And I mean, of course, crowds of men and sometimes women still showed up because she's Jayne Mansfield. But a child, once they got there, they was like, ugh, what is this? And around this time, her skin started to not look so good. bags under her eyes. She just started to look very, very run down. And Sam Brody even took her to a lower level when he started feeling like, okay, we're not making enough from your little road shows, so what I want you to do is start selling pictures of her younger self now when she was like really hot stuff. Start selling those pictures backstage after the show for 25 or 50 cents. That is so degrading. But finally, a glimmer of hope happened. And that is when she was cast in a serious film, something she had wanted all her life, in 1966. It was called A Single Furnished Room. And Jayne played a broke down, past her prime prostitute. And she did a wonderful job in this movie. Her acting got rave reviews. The only problem was this movie was a B-list type movie. You know, didn't make no money. And wasn't nobody checking for this movie. So since wasn't nobody checking for the movie, of course, no other roles came. And she had to go back to doing her little review tours. That is what she was doing on the night before she died. On the evening of June 28th, 1967, Jayne had a performance in Biloxi, Mississippi. After her performance at Gus Stevens Supper Club, Jayne, her 3 children, Miklos, Mariska, and Zoltan, along with Sam Brody, her now husband, got on the road to travel to New Orleans because she had another show there in the morning. Now, they were too tired to drive, Jayne and Sam, so they got a 20-year-old named Ronnie Harrison to do the driving for them. You know, I guess he knew the owner, Gus, or somebody like that, and they let him know that, hey, these people will pay you if you take them down to New Orleans. So Ronnie was like, cool. And before I get to the next part, I want to put up a warning that there will be some graphic images. So, you know, if you don't want to watch them, maybe you can fast forward through that part. They're all in the car. They're driving on the road very, very late at night to New Orleans. At around 2:25 a.m. that next morning, Ronnie Harrison crashes into a tractor trailer. And this happened because in front of the tractor trailer, there was a mosquito bug spraying truck. I don't know if y'all have these up north, but we have them down south. There's a insecticide type truck that sprays the roads. Well, the fog was so heavy that it covered up the tractor trailer, and Ronnie did not see it, so he was going full speed, crashing into that tractor trailer. The 3 adults in the front, Sam, Jayne, and Ronnie, they were killed immediately. And a lot of people like to think that Jayne Mansfield was decapitated. I don't know if she was or not. I also used to believe it, but I don't anymore, because I've read a lot of reports that it was actually her blonde wig along with some of her scalp that was found in the windshield. And people thought this was like her full head stuck in the windshield, but it wasn't. Also, I believe it was Jayne, you never know with the internet, but I believe I saw a picture of her laid out on the grass, and it looked to me that her head was still very much intact. Now, when the paramedics arrived, they rescued the children. As a matter of fact, the only reason that the children did survive is that they were laid down on the back seat as well as the floor sleeping. That's the only way they survived that. After her death, Jayne Marie, her eldest daughter, took it very, very hard. The younger children, they were a little too young to remember, so they don't know much about it, but Jayne Marie remembered it clearly, and it hurt her heart. So this has been the Old Hollywood scandalous, tragic tale on the life of Miss Jayne Mansfield. Now, let's get to our vote. Are we going to be called the Ash Squad, the Aces, or the Says So Squad? Let me know which one that you like the very best. Also, go follow me on Facebook as well as Instagram. The links will be in the description. And if you would like to purchase my novel, that link will also be in the description. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.